Welcome to the tools you gotta have to make it in the business. Close enough. I'd like to introduce the people here that have joined me at the table. We have Warren Drummond, we got Aaron Sode, and we got Josh Shepard. Josh may only have suspected this, but he's definitely going to be the workhorse of this panel because he's got his fingers into almost every type of program and how to do it or what it's about, YouTube things, you know. So I frankly just ask questions to him when we get to the questions. So he'd basically cover all of it. So we're here on the dime, if you want to call it, of the Art Directors Guild, the Illustrators and Mad Artists Craft, and I think we're about ready to show our little thing.
Jennifer Walters, Esquire, lawyer, millennial, searching for her and her personal life. Mystery. And now, when Jennifer Walters grows angry or outraged, a startling metamorphosis occurs. The creature is driven by rage and pursued by online trolls.
Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
She is provoked into a rampage that has landed her in prison, and now she is seen only for the raging spirit that dwells within her.
Before we begin, I'd like to point something out, just a kind of a background note. Now, we are working professionals that have been in the business for a little bit, and so there's, things have changed a bit over not just COVID. This has been going on before that. Essentially, our union contract for, illustrators to work is that we bring our talent and the studios provide everything else. So when we would walk in the older days, in the old times, we would walk in just carrying, whatever, our lunch or whatever. And they would provide pencils, pens. We used to be able to get like a whole new set of Tria markers or Copic pens or whatever. And, and then all of the stuff we need to do our job was essentially provided in the production office, okay? Now, obviously, it's changed a lot, and there's more reasons than just a pandemic why we are working remote these days. But even so, the world went digital. And even before we stopped working in production offices, we essentially, they couldn't just afford to buy us a new Apple computer every time we walked in the door. And they weren't just, I guess they weren't at that time, putting or renting them up, I suppose it probably happened where they've rented one for people or whatever, but mostly, especially for concept illustrators and people who are doing matte paintings and everything else, they need the high-end stuff, right? So therefore, we have what was called box rental, in which case now we own all the equipment. We have to go out and purchase it, and then we rent it back to production, all right? And hopefully after a few months or years, that pays for what we have, okay? So that's kind of the basis of what this thing is about. We have to actually have the equipment ourselves, and now that we're remote workers, for the most part, we have to have everything. We have to have our own production office. So I'm going to go down the line and basically ask what each of our artists, what their workspace is like, their own workspace. So Warren, why don't you start us off?
Well, there is a bat cave, so I have the bat computer. There's a giant penny.
T-Rex?
That's Batman. Sorry, I'm sorry.
I'm going to ask you where you got your T-Rex.
I have a whole. That's a long story, man. Well, I have a home office, so I have desk, computer, Cintiq, tchotchkes everywhere. You can have my inspiration. I've got a whole bookshelf behind me of my art books, old art books, things I've had for decades. There's a TV in case I want to pop in and watch ESPN. Yeah, it's at home. So it's just something that I'm very comfortable in. The big difference is when you're at home, you have to create your own energy for working 10 hours, 12 hours beyond. When you're at an office, everyone builds energy. You can build energy from everyone around you. And plus you're also able to meet people, gain relationships, very important thing that people used to do. And and you don't get distracted like having your spouse or delivery person, FedEx or whatever, come by your house. So,
Daddy, I have a frog. You want to see?
There you go. And it's not just a frog. So, having a workspace that's really comfortable is the main thing, and sunlight is also a big thing. So I have it open. There's a window. Pull the drapes open. You gotta have sunlight. Keeps you alert. Mm-hmm. And I also play music. I play everything from the Wu-Tang Clan, by the way. Wu-Tang from New York. Beatles, a lot of podcasts. So just play whatever keeps you up and inspired during the day.
All right. Aaron, you too.
Pretty much what Warren said. I mean, I'm on a MacBook Pro. I have my Cintiq. I'm right-handed, so I got my big screen that I draw on. I also have my iPad, Procreate. Primarily working in Photoshop these days. It's kind of my comfort zone. Although Procreate is unbelievable. I can't wait for the animation program that's coming out. I think next month, right? November, yeah. So I'm definitely, tend to be probably transition to Procreate for most of my work. I just love the flexibility of the iPad and being able to take it and just, coming up with that workflow. A lot of the Marvel and DC stuff, I'll work with SketchUp, like on She-Hulk and Secret Invasion. We had sets that had already been designed and built in SketchUp, and so being able to work with those programs really expedites the process. I can place my camera, I can get my background shots, I can come in there, and especially if I'm doing like an animatic, I can just focus on the characters and the movement and telling the story, and not spend as much time as I normally would drawing backgrounds. So that's a huge time saver, and I'm sure we'll get into this as we go. But yeah, basically, I'm a lot like Warren. I try to listen to podcasts, take breaks, keep motivated. I was on Secret Invasion, I think, for 13 months, and when you storyboard a scene the first 2-3 times, it's fun, but I literally did scenes like 14-15 times, so by the 15th pass, it's like, yeah, I know this scene pretty well. So yeah, it's a big thing, working on your own, working remote, you don't have that camaraderie, so definitely you want to stay focused.
All right, Josh?
So my workspace, I finally have a proper Zoom wall. My daughter, Basil, helped me set up. So working remote for these directors, a lot of times they're under enormous stress, and also the productions can be really chaotic and disorganized. So on my end, I like to have everything set up so that it goes smoothly, meaning if their audio sucks on their end, I can't really fix their audio, but I make sure that my audio is good, and I even have a little dial for volume, because it happens where you wait and wait and wait for this meeting, and you finally get it, and it's the director's like literally 15 feet from the microphone in the basement of some place, some office, and they're all stressed out and distracted, and you got to turn it up, and maybe they're from England, and the strong accent, you never know. So I make sure that they can see me clearly on Zoom. I make sure Zoom is always updated, and I do the best I can to control any of that chaos on my end. I've got a 24-inch Cintiq I draw on. I have an actual webcam because I noticed it looks a lot clearer than the little camera on my Mac. And then I even got a piece of software for $20 or something that you can like adjust how you look on there so that I don't look like bright red or dark, sort of a dull dark green. I put some lights up because when you're working with some new client, they've never seen me, I just want everything to go as smooth as possible. Because a lot of times they put our meetings at the end of a long day and the director's grumpy and they don't want to have anything not work out, so I try and control that on my end. So it's really just my MacBook Pro hooked up to my 24-inch Cintiq, and then my camera and my Zoom wall, and then a whole wall of books for inspiration, like you guys said. That's about it.
All right, well, I'm going to explain mine. I think my work office is a cancer that's taken over my house because it's spread into different rooms and I can't seem to contain it in one place. I guess Wi-Fi made me lazy. I can work from any room in the house, and with an iPad and a Procreate, I can actually be in front of the big screen TV and a lazy boy, and do work from that. I wanted to point out something too. It's like as professionals, one of the best things I think about the way we work is to have we're working basically with our time. We're selling our time. Now, the plus of working in a production office is, that your time starts when you show up and ends when you walk out the door. Everything else is your time, except for commuting, in which case I scream and yell all the time when I'm in a car in traffic, and I'm saying that this is my, now I have to stay later because I'm going to be late because, somebody decided to make the wrong turn on the San Diego freeway or something like that. So that's your usage of time. Now, when you don't have to commute, everything makes it a little bit nicer. But then again, of course, your time is now all the time. Everything that you do to work is right there where you live, and there is such a thing as flex time, but it's a little hard when it's basically in your face. You have dinner, do a little drawing, have dessert, do a little drawing, look at the Facebook for about 3 hours, which is what happens to me, and then do some drawing. But and so you could end up working into like midnight, so that's a little warning for you guys. But my workspace includes a scanner because I do still use traditional tools. I've learned how to do things fast over the years in pencil and in a way that I like. And so I like having nice drawings, and I go ahead and scan them, darken them up a little bit, and they're good to go, okay? And I don't take one little drawing and blow up the size of, the entire computer screen so that I can put the rivets into the sheet metal in the background, okay? But I still use traditional tools. I am falling in love with Procreate, but it still has its quirks. I can't drag and drop like I do in Photoshop, so Photoshop is still my main babe. But Procreate is really great. iPad is really great. The whole thing about the little Cintiqs, or whatever you call it, the little Wacom computers that you take around. They're cool. I don't even know if they sell them anymore. So yes, I have computers, I have Wi-Fi routers, I have all the Zoom capability, I have but I do want to stress that I do still use traditional tools, and I have a bunch of markers that still haven't dried out yet that I pull out every once in a while and play with when I'm watching TV. So. Let's talk about some tools, okay? Now, we can go ahead and if anybody wants to mention their favorite, traditional tool, but let's talk about our software and hardware needs when we're doing this stuff, right? I still work quite a bit with, a Wacom Intuos. In fact, it kind of forces me to work in shapes and think in terms of that when I'm composing. And, it's like a no-brainer when it comes to doing tones and stuff like that. I have a Cintiq gathering dust because I do prefer to work on an iPad when I'm drawing digitally. It's just that good. And we mentioned Procreate. Procreate and Sketchbook have some of the best drawing tools, that come closer to pen work and pencil work that I've ever seen. Photoshop, you have to kind of like monkey around with it to get the tip that you really like, So that's what I kind of use. But as far as all the other things like, programs, I'm good with Photoshop. I'm trying out different things. Sketchbook again is kind of cool. I'm playing with clip art. I'm not proficient and fast with any of the other things. I kind of like little bits and pieces from that. Luckily, digitally, you can always import, export, those files. I mean, the fact that in Procreate you can export into a Photoshop file or a TIFF file or a JPEG file. And even, this is the goodie, going in and making PDFs out of them. Because in the end, what you turn in to the production office always has to be digital. They don't take paper anymore, They don't have any place to store it. Hell, they don't even want my body in there, They don't want to rent a chair for me, I'm there to talk with somebody, the director, whatever, and they want me out of there. So they don't want to store your paper. So you generally turn in a PDF. Okay. I think I'd like to turn this over to Warren because he has a system that's a little bit different than most people in live action, but very typical in a way to people working animation. So would you like to talk about your method?
Magic.
That too.
No, I use a program called Storyboard Pro. And the reason why, there you go. Woo, all right. Storyboard Pro, all right. So just Storyboard Pro. So yeah, so the big thing about that program is that you're able to change the aspect ratio. So if I'm working on a film and the ratio is 2:1 or 2:35, 2:39, 4:3, or whatever, I can make the frames whatever size. If everyone knows the aspect ratio being the size of the screen proportionally. So you have anamorphic and you have the regular features type of size, then you have TV size. The other good thing about Storyboard Pro is that you're able to move frames around. So if you have frames like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you want to move 7 in front of 3 and 2 in front of 5, you just drag them and move them around. So I like to use it for that. The tools, as far as the pencils and the brushes, they're okay. They're functional. Not in comparison to Photoshop or anything like that, right? So okay, so they suck. But for what I have to do, for just to lay things out, I lay things out in Storyboard Pro, and then time related, I then download it and then I upload them and format them in Photoshop, usually at 3 or 4 frames per page, and then I can use the nice brushes they have in Photoshop. But if there's a time issue, I've done jobs where you really have to get things done. They don't care about the prettiness, and speed-wise, Storyboard Pro has worked out fine just to get the job done and hand it over. Is that the method you were talking about?
That's exactly the method I was talking about. So basically, one of the things you can do, which is something I actually would like to, I don't want to use Storyboard Pro unless I have to, but you basically, if you work in animation, you have to, okay? But I like the idea that there's also the naming protocol. Not only can you drag it around, but you can do something and name it, something that will, when you import it, it will land right in the space you need between the two shots that they go in, like an insert shot or something like that, right? But what I like the idea of his method is that, if you don't like the tool, that is, honestly, it's like a crayon. I mean, it's really, if you're doing Family Guy, I guess that's fine. But you can actually export it, keep the same name, export it or import it into like Photoshop or even Procreate or something like that. You could do that from like a JPEG, just to go into anything, and then you can, juice it up, and add whatever you want, little tones and all that kind of stuff, and then you could re-import it. It'll go back and take the place of the little, crayon scribble that you had before.
You can also make simple animatics in Storyboard Pro. Has a brother way in the back there. He's like, yeah, that's right, Brand. Tell me about it. So I'm not an animatic person, so I do, when I've had to, I've done very, very simple animatics. And there are people here who do much better animatics, but it can be helpful for a basic conceptual version for an animatic.
All right, well, let's move down the table. We've got Josh and Aaron. Not only are board artists, but they've been producing animatics too. So, why don't you just go from storyboards and then into animatics? Describe your working and then
My
go
process?
into that.
I've just been using Midjourney. It's $39.99 a month, and you just You just paste in the script and it storyboards the entire movie for you. So
Kill.
I'm actually storyboarding as we speak. It's running on my computer. No, I think Warren made a really good point, which is every hell no. Every production is different, and every production is going to have different requirements. And so sometimes, like back in the day, when we actually print our scripts out, and every now and then I will print out the script, but sometimes on the Marvel shows or like Black Adam, if we're doing reshoots, you only kind of get that little section that you're working on, your little sequence, and so you don't really have the entire script, which is, as a board artist, I love having the script, and I love knowing the character arcs and what's going on in a scene. So I would actually do my thumbnails with like a little ballpoint pen, right on the scripts on the back of the pages before I met with my director or during the director's meeting. But yeah, working remotely, it helps be flexible, I think, because I've worked on shows like Maleficent 2, and we had to work on their equipment because Disney's like super high secure. We had to go into like a clean room. You couldn't have your cell phone. You couldn't have internet access, which really slows you down because as storyboard artists, especially if I'm drawing horses or something, I can draw a horse out of my head, but it really helps to have reference. So shows like that do slow you down, whether I'm working for a previs company or on VFX or directly for the studio. But I typically start like with actually a shot list. I think thumbnails as I'm reading the script, and then I'll do a shot list, and that really helps me get a sense of the scope that I'm doing, and then I can turn around to the director or the producer, and I can say, okay, well, I have 40 frames to do today, no problem, or this entire sequence is going to be like 800 shots, and it's going to take me, a week or whatever long that's going to take. So it really does help to pace yourself to kind of have that shot list. I always thought a shot list was wasted time, but it's kind of one of my most valuable tools, especially like on Godzilla vs. Kong. These sequences were so big, it was hard for me to wrap my mind around it. So once I have the shot list, I'll usually go to the thumbnails. Sometimes if it's going right into previs, the thumbnails are tight enough. I've worked on lots of shows where they just take my thumbnails and start doing previs directly from my thumbnails. But like on the She-Hulk stuff you saw, I had a long time to do those frames, and those were for presentation. So it just depends on who the audience is, and every show is going to be different. Feature films, we get usually 2 or 3 months on a feature, whereas TV, it's a really quick turnaround. So if I'm on a show like Fear the Walking Dead or something, 7 or 8 days, you're only going to be able to storyboard a few sequences, and it's just go, 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 go. You're not doing pre-drawings, but you're just trying to turn around a quick volume so they can assess like special effects and things like that. So yeah, I usually turn in layered PSD files. I'm usually working with an editor. Sometimes I do it myself, but I'll have like foreground, background, middle ground. I'll have like A and B poses for characters if I can. It just depends on the show and what they're looking for. If I'm doing it for VFX or if I'm doing it for blocking for a live action show.
Well, I got a question for you then, because this is tools that you got to have. Are you using anything extra besides, like, say, Photoshop or something like that to do these frames for animatics, or?
Primarily Photoshop, and then import them into like Premiere or Final Cut Pro. When we were doing like Bad Boys for Life and a lot of the Will Smith stuff, Jeremy, my editor, he would add like cool explosions, and if somebody got shot, there'd be like all these cool little things that you can do in After Effects that kind of enhance the animatic and it turn it into like a little mini movie, which is really fun to do. And then sometimes we'll have like record some temp VO or like a temp soundtrack, and the editor, we'll be kicking things back and forth.
So those are Adobe software options.
Exactly. The
you
Adobe
can have. Used to be you get the Adobe Suite, and it would have everything in it, and then you'd use about like 10-15% of it. But yeah, so you need to, if you're thinking along those lines, or you think that getting into animatics, then you probably should know that software too. All right, Josh?
Most of the time I'm just doing regular storyboards, which I deliver as a PDF. And a couple of people have mentioned previs. I don't know if everyone knows exactly what that is, but previs stands for pre-visualization, and it's basically there are these companies that they'll take our storyboards and they'll make what looks like kind of a 90s video game. It's animated characters in environments with accurate cameras, and they'll edit it together, often with sound. So a lot of times we're storyboarding for the previs sequence, which the director then weighs in on the edit, and it's closer to a film than a storyboard is. But in order to do that, we have to have some format. The boards have to be in a format that the previs team can get it right. Do these 3 frames represent 3 separate shots, or do they represent shot 1A, 1B, cut, and shot 2? And so that's why a storyboard has sometimes more information in a way than an animatic, even though the animatic has little moving characters and stuff. So what I do is I draw in Photoshop or Procreate my frame, and then I put it into Apple's Pages, which is just a page layout program on the Mac. And I make sure to put clear descriptions and numbers and cut or continued, just so that whoever gets a hold of this storyboard, there's no guessing going on about what the intention was with, if I have an arrow on the left of frame, I will label that that's the camera or that it's the horse moving in. Because if you leave like a blank arrow, they might be like, oh, I guess I'll just move the horse or I'll move the camera. And this is when chaos starts happening and the director comes in and sees the previs edit and they go, no, that camera was supposed to track left to right the entire time. So I'm delivering a PDF that I built from my Photoshop drawings in Apple's Pages. But if I'm doing an animatic, instead of putting it all together in a page layout program, I'm just spitting out JPEGs and sending them to the editor or putting them into Adobe Premiere and cutting them together myself. But it takes longer, and a lot of times it's just faster to do regular storyboards for previs. Another thing that should really be brought up is you've really got to back up your work. That's vital. A lot of times people, when they're starting out, they will spend money on the computer and they'll be like, well, that's all the money I'm going to spend, that and the software. And they'll like, I'll get a hard drive someday. Well, that day is going to be really painful if you don't back up your work. So that's the other thing I have is I have 2 external hard drives, and I don't do automatic backups, but I back it up very frequently, just in case something goes wrong. The power has gone out. I've been storyboarding in the middle of some epic storm. The power was out for 2 days. And besides drawing in Photoshop, I draw in Procreate and send it to my MacBook and build it out the same way. So,
Yeah. Do you have a surge protector that has a battery?
I thought about getting one and I decided against it. I just was like, I have a real good surge protector, but not one with a battery. But
we had a power outage in my area, which used to happen more often. And I was pleasantly surprised to see, I get my internet through a coaxial cable, right? And I was still getting internet and everything else because the battery was keeping, all that equipment, even the, running out of it. My Wi-Fi and everything was working. But, yeah, I would recommend you don't get a Drobo system. That I got talked into that, but you should have hardware, or rather a external hard drive. I don't even know if the cloud is that reliable, and then also back up your work like every 15 minutes to a half hour.
Oh yeah, with the cloud, I definitely have Dropbox, but I prefer Google Drive. But one of the things we deal with is everything we work on in these big movies is top secret. Everything's top secret nowadays because they're afraid of all the internet kids getting a hold of anything, any information. And so I do not back up all my stuff on the cloud for that reason, because I don't want to be the one that, revealed that the new Batman costume, he's wearing flip-flops or whatever. So I'm backing it all up myself at home on 2 hard drives, but we have to be really careful these days with all of this. There's all this hacking and all this crap. So if you work even on a TV show that not a ton of people have heard of, be really respectful of their intellectual property. That's a big deal. You don't want to be the one that just posted just a single frame of some show that you thought wasn't that big, and then it turns out it's the biggest thing of the year or something. You've got to be really careful working with this stuff.
Well, there's practices that could be its own panel. Just the practices, standards and practices. The way that you basically interact with the studios and clients. I wanted to bring up when we get into actual tools, we haven't even talked about just a little bit 3D tools. For instance, SketchUp is a tool that, frankly, when I'm in the art department and somebody has designed a prop or a room or something like that in 3D on SketchUp, I would just say, hey, I'll go over his shoulder and say, move the camera a little bit there, and then, okay, now screen grab. And then, in the end, all I need is a screen grab because, I'm producing a 2D illustration in the end. But nowadays, you actually need to know a little bit how to use the toggles of that thing and have it available so that when they send you like remotely, they send you the file, you can put your virtual camera where you want it so that you can use the reference. And I mean, there are a bunch of free models, like what did you want, a VW Bug or something like that, they have it, but you can't do that with assets that are built in SketchUp by the art department that need to be incorporated into your storyboard or into your illustration, right? So there you go, there's something right there. As far as like other 3D things like Maya and whatever, I don't know, has anybody actually needed that on a job?
I've ended up needing it because one of the problems in live action storyboarding is that we're not actually part of any department. They sit us in the art department, but we're working directly with the director or visual effects. And so I started to learn at least how to open up some of these 3D files for that same reason, is that I started to realize there's no one there that's available. Like if I go look over someone's shoulder and say, hey, can you show me the inside of that castle set? And they'll be like, I'm really busy, I'm on deadline, and I'd have to stop what I'm doing and open up that set, which takes a while. So I started to realize over the years I was getting sort of left out. So I was like, you know what, I should be able to open a SketchUp file. I should be able to open a Maya file. Maya's much more complicated, but now there's like you can get a student copy if you're a student. I think that's free, or there's like indie pricing if you don't use it that often. But any time as a freelancer that you can say yes to something, like, just like, hey, can you give me that Maya format? It will make you so much more useful. That's how I ended up working a lot with visual effects. Is first I was hitting a brick wall and I couldn't open this, I couldn't open that. Then I was like, screw it, I should be able to open this and at least move the camera around and screen grab it myself because everyone else is buried on a deadline and they can't help me. Maya is the big one in film. SketchUp is the other big one in film. But a lot of times they'll come in a format that you could open up in Blender. And Blender's free and it will run great on your crappy little laptop. And part of learning 3D is just the ability to recognize and open various file formats and kind of jump through those hoops. And you don't need to learn hardly any 3D, but you do need to learn how to open them. And if you can kind of talk some of that language, I notice doors start opening and people in visual effects like to have you around, and they know that you're going to be able to get an asset, work on it, put the accurate background in your storyboard because you have that 3D model, and then hand that storyboard on to the next person down the line.
I don't mean to drop a bomb here, but I think I'm anticipating maybe if somebody did have a question over here. Not that if you do have more questions, please, we're going to have you, I think they have a mic dedicated over here near the projector right here up front. But since we're here and since the word tool has been used in regarding this, Josh, you once showed me that there was a way of manipulating AI to work, just for one particular thing, for a storyboard assignment, and I'd like you to at least.
I had this sequence that was kind of just a montage in a TV movie, and it was kind of, the shots weren't very original, let's say, and so it was the kind of thing like you could probably get a stock photo of like a young man and woman on a date in Paris with the Eiffel Tower in the background. It was shots like this. So AI had just come along and I thought, oh, I'm going to try it. And I used Dream Studio or something. And ultimately, after, just really trying to use it for a whole day, it ended up not saving me any time, and also, I mean, the only reason I was able to use it is because those shots were so generic. You know, happy couple in a cafe on the street, or happy couple holding hands in an airplane seat, you know, stuff like this. But for the complicated stuff that we do for these big movies, there is no way that I can imagine it'll ever get to where it could put together all of these disparate pieces for a big complicated sequence that we have. Because, you know, if you watch a making of movie and they interview the director and the production designer and visual effects, they're always saying some version of, yeah, we knew what we were doing and we were mavericks and we're just great filmmakers and blah, blah, blah. But the reality is movies are highly disorganized. And so the director may not be there. They might be in a helicopter over Iceland scouting, and you're on your own, and you contact all the different departments and try and get some clues, and you find out, well, there's a script, but everyone says it's changing. But there's this YouTube video that the director really likes, and I'm not sure what it is, but I got to track it down. Then also he or she referenced that one-er shot, one continuous camera move in Children of Men, and then, you know, like maybe 3 or 4 other clues. And now I have to put it all together into a coherent sequence that works filming in this location with the assets visual effects has and the schedule the first AD came up with. So there's no way AI could ever put that stuff together. So I feel pretty confident that our jobs are going to be here for a while because of that chaos, you know. But sorry, I got off topic, Tim. You were asking me.
Well, I mean, it was just, if this were a closed system where you basically had like whatever, the virginal version of Midjourney or whatever, and it was just going to use the information that you put in, and it wasn't going to get shared with like the mothership or anything like that. You had one thing that it was the only valid thing I've ever seen for this, and that was you showed them your pencil style, and then you showed them a picture of like a person that was like the actress in the commercial or whatever.
Oh yeah, no, that one, it wasn't my pencil style. That you'd have to go training it for a long time. I didn't do that. I don't know how to do that, but I did a pencil drawing of the actress, and then it did kind of a likeness. The problem was it's never quite in the right place. So, but the AI is really affecting the concept artists. It's very real. I mean, right now they're losing jobs to AI because they do more finished, nice work, and Midjourney and all those are really good at that. Fortunately or unfortunately, our work isn't that pretty a lot of times, and it's more the ideas. It's more the ideas, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, somebody was written up there to somebody like it was going to come after storyboard artists. I say you'd have to teach that computer screen direction. They don't even know that, you know.
Yes.
Anyway, we got the word that we can answer some questions now. So if you have, we got a mic stand. Everybody's eyes watch the mic stand. Oh, it's pretty.
Tim, sorry,
yes.
by the way, in case anyone, in case people leave, if anyone wants to know what it's like day-to-day storyboards, I have a book. It's not a how-to book, it's just a book on working on different films. So it's called A Hard Day's Work, just so you know about it, A Hard Day's Work. You get it on Amazon, and it goes about work with John Singleton, Denzel Washington, when he directs, Ron Howard, on A Beautiful Mind, and just the day-to-day work of a storyboard artist. For anyone that wants to know about it, beyond what we're talking about, that's the book. So you can get it on Amazon.
Yeah, that's a great book. I said to Warren, it's a book I wish I had written because it's got all these great, real stories of what it's like. So buy that book if you're interested in live-action storyboarding because it's just terrific. For sure.
Thank you.
All right, so if we haven't covered any topics, I mean, I can't believe that we basically, you know, answered every single question you have about doing it. There's the chance. Ask us a question. It's almost anonymous. We're so dark in here, you know. We can't even see your face. Go ahead and yes, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
No, we can't.
Testing. Oh, hello. Okay, hi. So I'm a 3D modeler, and I dabble a little bit in lighting as well. I shouldn't say a little bit. I'm very passionate about lighting as well. But I recently, I use Maya. It's not my favorite program. I use it because it is industry standard, but I tend to gravitate a little more towards ZBrush. But lately, with my computer kind of needing an upgrade, I've been utilizing my iPad more to do stuff. I recently came across Nomad for 3D modeling, and I find it to be quite impressive as far as the capabilities of the device in general. And I was just curious if that program has kind of surfaced in your guys' ring as something becoming more common, just due to the nature of being able to be mobile while also doing 3D modeling, which is usually pretty computationally intensive. So I was just curious what you guys had thoughts about that.
Well, were you working on your iPad? Was that the Procreate?
I do have Procreate. I have the iPad Pro. I think it's like the 14, so it's obsolete now. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, it's if there are other like 3D model type of things that you can do on iPad. I wasn't aware of it. I know that they've got like a limited animation type of thing and some 3D modeling going on there.
Yeah,
And
there's Maxon, who now owns ZBrush, has also an app, but I tried it and it wasn't nearly as robust as I find Nomad to be. And I was just curious because I've been so impressed with it. I was just curious if it's becoming a more common thing and if you guys think we'll be seeing more. Because before you just had to have such a monstrous computer to do these things, and now being able to model right off of a tablet and create OBJ files that can go into ZBrush and Maya and get modified further, it's mind-boggling.
Well, it sounds like you know more about that than we do. But Josh, do you have
I
any-
haven't heard of it, but I have seen over the years different software comes in. Like ZBrush was like this weird exotic thing at one time. And the main thing is if you can get the results and export your model in a format that's usable by the other people in the pipeline, especially in visual effects, then it's completely valid. You know, people are using Blender all the time now, and you know, just it's all about the next person that gets your file, if it's usable.
Okay,
Thank you, guys.
yeah, thank you. Next person?
Hello? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Kira. So I dabble mainly in production, a little bit of pre-production. Can you not hear?
Talk to the mic. Into the mic.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
So I do mainly production, a little bit of pre-production here and there. But you guys were talking earlier about the switch to more remote positions and how to deal with that adjustment. And I'm just wondering, I've seen a little bit of it where companies or like, you know, individual indie projects will have a couple people that they hire, but they use different softwares and they're sometimes able to make it work, sometimes there's a struggle. So like I've had experiences where like I use Maya mainly, but I've worked with people who prefer like Blender or, you know, any of the huge list of 3D softwares, you know, anything you can think of. So I'm just wondering if you guys have experience in that and how you, if you do have experience, how did you cope with it? How did you work around it? Or was it like too big of an issue and you guys had to kind of come to an agreement on a single program to use?
Well, you bring up a real important thing here, and actually it's considering that we're representing the union here. I won't go into rules of the road so much, but one of the things that we fight for is that they can't dismiss us, and essentially we have what's called the roster, meaning that if we have unemployed people, then the production needs to check us out before they start looking around to hire people that are non-union. And one of the excuses that they can't use is, oh, we have, you know, Mofo Killer, the new modeling program, and if you guys can't use it, then we don't need to hire you. And it says, no, we can do that same job using Maya, using whatever, and so that is no longer a reason where you can't be hired for that. If they're willing to, hire anybody to do that, either allow them to do, especially Maya is like a standard. You can't say, oh, Maya's old hat. We've got this thing. It says, no, Maya is a basic standard that can do anything that you're asking our illustrators to do. So you can't just say that you want Mofo Killer #2 or whatever. You got to have, and if you want to teach them, I'd love it if, people taught me different software on the job, I would, it's Storyboard Pro, I've had a couple of lessons that I had to sit through, but I don't want to do the subscription thing. But if you want to hire me, you pay the subscription and you show me what I need to do, I think I could pick it up pretty quick. So along what you're saying here, it is sort of, as a professional, you should be at least aware of what's being used, but they can't spring new stuff on you and just say, we can't hire you because of that. At least that's one of the things that our union protects us about, okay?
So for the most part, they are willing to work with you on that. If, you're willing to learn, they're willing to help you adjust to that new pipeline. Is that correct?
Pipeline, yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Next person.
Bring this up a bit. Okay. Hello. Hi, I'm Ben. I'm a writer. I generally am trying to write in animation, and one of the things that I've generally found is that when we're in production, you're writing a script, and then there are the people who are actually making the script, i.e. you, there's this kind of gap. It feels as if these are two completely separate entities that never really interact. And I was just kind of wondering, do you think that it's generally good that script writers and production crews don't interact? Do you think that they should interact more? And if so, what kind of ways would you be able to could you imagine fostering cooperation between both parties?
Well, film and entertainment type stuff here is all cooperative. So just on basics, I would say yes. Can anybody else answer that?
I like it. I've worked on shows where, especially on TV, where the showrunner might be the director as well. So there definitely is some overlap. For myself personally, the more interaction or the more collaboration I have, the better that I can be, the better I can do my job. I don't really see a downside to it. Do you?
No, I wish we had a lot more access to the writers, but in my experience, it's pretty rare for me to have access to the writer. We're given the script once a version of it gets filtered through the studio, and then to the director, and then to us. So I really wish there was a lot more collaboration. It would be a lot more efficient and probably a lot more fun. And by the way, if anybody has questions for me, I have some business cards here. If you have a question, if there's not enough time,
I have cards too, so thank you, Josh. Yeah, we don't really collaborate with the writers, particularly TV. If you're on features, you really don't. But on TV, I worked on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for years. So the writers, the production office had the production side and the creative side, but I only really had to work with the director. So it's not a bad thing, it's just that you really don't have to work with the writers to do the storyboards, because ultimately you're just working with what the director wants, and the director is working for the writer producers anyway.
Well, just a little aside as an example, The Rock's one of his first movies was Scorpion King, and I worked on that, and they had a storyboard guy attached to every single department, and one guy was listed as not the senior storyboard artist, but the supervising storyboard artist, just because basically everybody went through him. But it was kind of any little kids over here, it was a crap show, okay? Because everybody, at least the thing with a board artist is whoever we're working with is a second unit stunt people, visual effects, previs guys, whatever. We're basically there to help do a visual version of what they want to do, so they basically don't have to, explain it, verbally to everybody. So we're facilitate, the visual end of it, communication-wise, right? Yeah, I mean, as far as cooperation goes, I mean, you never know what you're going to find. Can we get the next?
Hi, my name is Julian Lee. I'm more on like the on-set film and TV production side, and the question I have today is, in terms of like the process of storyboarding, what would you say your relationship is with like cinematographers?
Well, cinematographers, I mean, each of you have your own experience. My experience is that you basically, sometimes a director is pretty much a cinematographer, but not always. And usually the cinematographer comes in after us, because what we're doing is getting the director's take on how he wants to see the movie, and then he uses our work to work with the cinematographer to come up with how they're going to actually shoot it, right? And by the way, those of you who haven't done storyboarding so far, in cases of animation, yes, you will see your stuff used verbatim, and basically it looks exactly the way you do it. In TV and movie and live action film, you're lucky to recognize it, because they shoot wide, medium, and close-up on almost everything. And then whatever the cinematographer wants to do that day, like hang upside down from cables or whatever, that will show up, So we're cooperative. We're basically, working in cooperation with everything else to come up with the final product. But what we're doing isn't the final product. So the cinematographer, very rarely do I actually communicate with the. If he's in the room, he's talking to the director, not me.
I've actually worked a lot with DPs. I think it goes from what film you're on, because I've done a lot of jobs where it may be the director and the DP that I'm having a meeting with. And on certain movies, I've worked with the DP and not the director. When I worked straight out of Compton, I worked with F. Gray for a while, then I worked with the DP. When I worked to analyze this, it was just the DP. I've done other shows where it's just the DP or the director and the DP. So it really varies from show to show.
And if I could ask a follow-up question, is that okay? Just a quick one. For you specifically, working on Ad Astra, were you working with Hoyte van Hoyteman like directly, or was that one of them?
Okay, for Ad Astra, when I first started on it, there were other artists on it before I was on, but for that scene that you saw, I worked with the second unit director, Dan Bradley, who never worked with a board artist before, so that was a lot of fun. Yeah, but when I came back a year and a half later, I worked with James Gray, the director. They had some extra stuff they had to shoot, so I'm working with James, and then I came back another week, and we had a meeting with James Gray, the new DP. Brad Pitt was in the meeting, and all these other producers. So it varies.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Jolie. I am a Toon Boom rigger and animator, and something you mentioned was that concept artists are losing their jobs over AI right now. And so my biggest worry is that AI is going to take my job for rigging and animation. What would you recommend me to focus on to make sure I always have a job, even though technology is still advancing very quickly?
Can I start off saying that one of the things that as artists we have a hard time understanding is that we strive for quality, and sometimes the producers are not even looking at that. They're looking at something else. They're looking at, what they can get for their budget, or how much they can pocket. Well, has anybody seen The Secret Invasion opening on Disney Plus? Isn't that the stupidest piece of crap you've ever seen in your life? That was all AI, and it was badly done. I've seen better stuff done in the 50s, So, and if they were trying for that, I think they didn't even come up to that quality. So, honestly, we're all kind of wondering. We literally have to stand together about this type of stuff because AI basically has stolen work. And just because they can put that stuff out quick doesn't mean that, I mean, I don't even know what are there a lot of people that you know that are not artists that want to become instant artists by plugging AI into their laptop? I don't even know where
AI art right now, like
yeah.
on Etsy and all this different stuff for like a good amount of money. And so
What is your, I didn't hear the first part. What is your job exactly?
So I am a Toon Boom rigger and animator. I am not technically in the industry yet, but that's what I'm focusing on because ever since the strikes, there's been layoffs and all that.
My opinion is if you're doing something like rigging, you're good. Like it's so complicated, and every character is strange and different. You might have a character that's got I don't know, a beard that's dreadlocks or something, and I just don't see AI rigging birds' wings and all this stuff. I think that you're probably in pretty good shape if you stick with rigging, if that's what you want to do.
I find it relaxing, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a highly technical and difficult job, and I don't see AI taking that. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's my opinion.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.